Hello, this is Lisa LaRose here on Connect to Love on PRN-FM, and I'm joined by the incredible Michael J. Russ. I want to welcome you, Michael, to say hello and check in how you're doing.
I'm awesome. Always good about life.
All right, so I'm like a kid in a candy store. I woke up this morning with a great big smile on my face because we have joining us today Eric Alexandrakis. And it is, I just can't even tell you. I read a quote this morning, and it just sums up Eric, and it's, may the light of the sun illuminate my heart, that my heart may illuminate the world. And Eric, first I want to welcome you, but that is how I feel about you. You bring so much to this planet, and I just feel like everything you do, from the graphics that you do to the music that you bring forth, it just illuminates the world with so much joy. And so I want to welcome you, and then I'll introduce you properly, but I just want to say welcome. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.
Yeah. Always a lot of light, man.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff, a lot of good mojo coming from
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And thank you for this free therapy session. I am looking forward to it.
Well, I really, truly appreciate it. So for our audience members who may not be familiar with Eric's music, first of all, you know, what's wrong with you? No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, Eric is a 2-time Grammy-nominated artist, and 2019 was the first nominee for Best Spoken Word Album, and then again in 2022 for Best Americana Performance. And he has a new single out that is called Home. And I love it, Eric, because you have dedicated that to, and I just saw this morning, was all of those who managed to pull yourselves out of the quicksand and find happiness and not forget where you came from. And I will tell you, this song has spoken to me in so many words. The languaging in it is absolutely incredible. I think I want to put this on a sweatshirt, pacing in the restless zigzag. I'm going, oh my goodness. Yeah. There's so many beautiful words in there, but the reviews of it have been absolutely amazing. We'll delve into that, but you're an incredible music talent. You've worked with so many incredible artists and produced so many just fantastic pieces of music. And I just want to say welcome you, and we'll just and welcome to your therapy session, I guess, because it's going to be lots of fun.
Oh, well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it is. And
lovely to have you.
You have been on really an epic adventure, and I'm curious because your family had this summer an opportunity to do something, and it goes well beyond a family project. You went to Greece, and I'd love for you to clarify a little bit, because was it your idea to delve into this project, or you kind of enlisted your father help? But it was said that this is one of the most important projects that ever has happened in Greece in the last 50 years. And there was a mass grave of 18 civilians. And I was curious, because as I was listening to Home, I was wondering if that experience was one of your inspirations, that project, and how important it was. It was the DNA analysis of those civilians so that people could have closure. And you had some very unexpected surprises. So I'd love for you to share with our audience just a little bit about that project and the inspirations that have come and grown from that, and the feeling, probably, I would imagine, of even being closer to family than you've ever been before.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's ever since I was a little kid, I would hear about, I've always been interested in like World War II history and things like that, probably because it affected my family. So ever since I was a little kid, I'd hear stories from my grandmother and relatives about the occupation, and from my father, different kind of bits and pieces. And I always knew of this tiny little church with the bones from, the mass grave. And I've seen them since I was a little kid. So it's always been in the back of my mind. And I've been to Germany many times. I absolutely love Germany. It's beautiful, and it's very interesting culture, and of course German cars. Who doesn't like German cars? So, but you can't help but deep down have a little kind of, a little, maybe, I don't know if it's fear, but maybe just a little uncomfortable feeling from, about the culture, about the place when you're there, just because of all the stories I'd heard, which, that was a long time ago, and you can't blame an entire race of people or country, whatever, for something that happened, almost 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. But, it's always been a little uncomfortable, especially when you hear the language, because it's really not a pretty language, the way right. Italian is and things like that. So, but I love going there. I mean, I love the architecture. I love the, not so much the food, the pastries, yes.
Oh, yeah.
But, I read a lot of World War II history and a lot. So anyway, I've had an interest in this, this whole thing that happened to the family back then. So it was 18 civilians that were rounded up, and one of them was my grandfather, my great-grandfather, and a few uncles, and there was children involved and other villagers, and they were basically marched to an olive grove, told to dig their graves, and shot on sight as reprisals for the Battle of Crete, because Hitler thought he could take the island in a matter of hours, and it took him about 13 days.
Wow.
Because the population resisted so much, and they had the help of the British forces, the Australian forces, the New Zealand forces, but he didn't expect this, and it was the first time he used paratroopers, and it was the last time he used paratroopers. So, the people of Crete are very fierce people. They've been dealing with invaders for thousands of years, be it the Venetians, the Ottomans, the Nazis, yeah. and they're like, we've had it with this. So they resisted, and they paid the price. So they started doing executions in different villages, and my dad's village of Avele was one of them, and the civilians, my grandfather was the mayor of the town, and he had just come back from his World War II service, his tour of duty, and interestingly enough, he was on a boat heading to Crete, and a Luftwaffe plane started shooting at his boat. He dove into the water, didn't know how to swim, survived that attack, came back, and then was executed shortly thereafter.
Wow.
So he survived the war, he survived that attack, and then they got him. So, and then, the Nazis took over his house because he was the mayor, and he built it by hands, and there was 4 soldiers living there. And my grandmother and my dad and my aunt had to live next door in my uncle's house. So, it's a pretty unpleasant story. So I've always been interested in that. And in about 2018, I started thinking about a project around my family I wanted to kind of put together because there's some interesting other things. Like one of my great uncles blew up a monastery about 100 years ago called Arkadi, which was back when the Ottomans were occupying. And he was a resistance fighter, and he had been holed up in this monastery with other resistance fighters and civilians, and the monks were protecting them, and the Turks caught wind and came and attacked and got a big cannon and blew the main door open. And so rather than being captured, he and the freedom fighters, along with all the civilians, several hundred people, got into this room that was a makeshift gunpowder room and blew themselves up, and he pulled the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He took several Ottoman soldiers with him, and some people survived, and, said accounts, it was him who pulled the trigger, shot the gunpowder or whatever it was. And so, there's a big history. And then my dad helped start the University of Crete, and so I started kind of gathering all these things, and of course the Nazi part of it as well. I wanted to communicate with the War Office in Berlin, the War Archives, to see who was in command, who gave the order, maybe who were the soldiers who took part in this, maybe try to track down family members of the soldiers to ask them if they heard any stories, and then maybe put it all in a documentary of sorts, and then the end be the matching of the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get war records, and the thing was kind of over the course of several years, just kind of going back and forth and working because these things take forever. And I mentioned to my dad, I said, I'm doing this thing, and it'd be kind of cool, like at the end, to try to match the DNA with the surviving members, and as part of like a documentary or whatever. And I said, do you think somebody at the University of Crete maybe could do something like this? And he's like, yeah, maybe I'll ask and see what it was. So, I'd be reminding him every few months, did you hear anything? Did you hear anything? He's like, yeah, I'd put some feelers out, we'll see what happens. And so I think about a year or two later, he's like, okay, it's happening. And I'm like, what's happening? He's like, the
Wow.
DNA. Really? He's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. So he funded it, actually.
That's incredible.
And so the university that he helped start is in Crete, would be doing the DNA analysis on his father's and grandfather's and uncle's remains, which is like an amazing kind of 360 kind of thing. And my dad also started the physics department there, which is like the top in Greece, and I think it's like the whole university is like number 500 or something in the world ranked. So it's a really interesting kind of circle.
Wow.
So, about a year or two ago, I think it was 2 years ago, there was some final analysis done on the remains, and I was actually, I think it was last year, I was actually there helping one of the forensic scientists handle the bones. I had gloves on, and I held one of the skulls, and as I'm turning it, a bullet fell out of it into my hand, and it was really intense kind of thing.
Emotional, sure.
Yeah, so I'd seen those skulls all my life, but I didn't know who was who, and we kind of made an agreement not to look at the identities until everybody can see them at once. But I cheated, and I looked at the paper that the forensic scientist had, and I knew which one was my grandfather and which one was my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather's skull is just completely broken into a million pieces. So then I started thinking, well, he had a reputation of being a bit tough, so I wonder if he resisted and they just battered him or something. So I was filming that whole process, and with my great-grandfather's skull was a wallet and a pocket knife. So we pulled that out, and knowing who it belonged to, I told my dad, I said, come and check this out. So I filmed him looking at his grandfather's wallet.
Oh my goodness.
Without him knowing it. And in the wallet was money. So, that was an interesting moment.
Wow.
So the whole thing came together, and it got all this great press and everything. And then there was an event, Remembrance in Crete in, early June, on the anniversary. And it was wild. I mean, the military was there, all these politicians were there. It was really nicely done. They did a really nice job. You never know, third world country, you just never know. I was kind of nervous, and I was like, God, I hope this isn't ridiculous. Because, in America, there's a very kind of methodical way of doing things, but Greece has come a long way over the years, so I was pleasantly surprised. It was really well done, well organized, and it was touching, and
That's for sure.
people would come up in the streets crying, and the press called it the most important thing to happen to Greece in 50 years, which I would have thought would be getting out of debt, but I'm not going to argue, so, but it's been, it's been a really cool experience. So, like, now this next phase is there's another phase that's in the works, and I'm not sure I'm supposed to talk about it yet, but there's another phase. So
wow. Well, I think it leaves you forever changed. And your dad said, when I read the article, he said, our most sacred oath in Crete is to take on the bonds of our ancestors. And it just moved me, because for him, even if it wasn't your grandfather and your great-grandfather and your two uncles, if it were strangers, I think that there was so much honor and reverence and finally having closure for those ancestors and peace and healing that can occur. And the healing is so beautiful, especially because it was so close to your father, and in turn it affects you and everybody that comes from you. So I'm just guessing, and I'd love to hear. I'm sure that it even strengthened the bond between you and your father even deeper than what it has been.
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see him get. They've always had a respect for him. I mean, he came from this tiny village, ended up at Princeton with a PhD in Princeton, studied under Eric Rogers, my godfather, who was neighbors and colleagues with Einstein, and was there when Oppenheimer was there, and all these people were there, and then to go back and start the university, and his involvement with the University of Miami, and it was great to just see him get this additional recognition for doing this. And we've always been close. When I was a little kid, we used to go on trips together to Crete alone for weeks on end, which I always enjoyed, and I do that with my son as well. And we hadn't done that in a long time. So my mom wasn't able to come. She had a paper she was working on for a conference in Ireland, and then my two brothers came, but they only stayed for a few days because they had to get back. But I stayed for like a month. So we were together all that time, and it was nice because we hadn't done that, just the two of us, in a while. Of course, we both got COVID from everybody kissing us, touching us and everything. And it was wild. We'd go to I went to urgent care and they wouldn't take money. And then, I go to the pharmacy to get, lozenges and they wouldn't take money. And then, I went to the grocery store and they gave me a free watermelon. It's it's nonstop love there, nonstop, just smothering, nonstop. Everybody is cuddly. Everybody wants to hug you, and it's always been like that. People were sending food over like 2-3 times a day. It was getting a little embarrassing. But
well, you are the Greek Elvis. I mean,
I am the Greek Elvis.
I am. You are the
Greek Elvis.
And
but now you and your family have even more, the notoriety that comes from that, the pride, from the people on the island. I mean, it takes a lot. Your ancestors stood up to, the Third Reich. I mean, this is not just anything that should be taken lightly.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the relative who blew up the monastery, we were looking in some old archives in the village, my dad's village, because my grandfather was the mayor, and we found some records that he had handwritten about funding, doing an initiative to fund a statue of that relative to put in the village, because when he blew up that monastery way back then, it was the spark that helped to liberate Crete. It took a few decades after, but it was the spark that made the news worldwide and brought more attention to the oppression of, from the Ottomans. So we saw this thing, and of course my grandfather was executed and never got to finish, never got to have that statue made of that uncle. So now my dad has continued that and has put forth someone to design the statue, make the statue, and the statue is going to be made. After all those years, after my grandfather had tried to do it, didn't get to. So my
have you seen a discernible difference in your own immediate family members and extended family that's there with regard to maybe a sigh of relief or any changes that in a positive way, other than the accolades that have been given to them? I mean, just people acting differently, feeling differently, perhaps outwardly.
The strangest thing is seeing those skulls my entire life, and then now looking at them, like looking at my grandfather's, and looking at it. It's just strange seeing it prior, not knowing, but suspecting maybe that's him because he had all his teeth and all that. Now looking at his face, or his I don't know if it's face but I guess it's his face. But looking at it now, it's a very odd feeling.
Sure.
The feeling that dominates the most with regard to what it did is that it sets. What we hope is that it sets an example for all generations, especially now with all the chaos going on, that these things can't happen again, shouldn't be happening again, and yet they are. Mm-hmm. So it feels more like a statement of how could you keep doing this when this kind of primitive behavior happened so long ago? Like, how can this still be happening? To bring awareness, to violent acts through the ages and today, and to hopefully train future generations, or not train, but inform them that, what are we doing here? Like, what is this?
Yeah. Mostly, there are generations that that are so far removed from World War II and the history of it. There's no way in the world they're going to relate to it. I mean, literally, they're not.
Yeah. When you, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, again.
Well, I was just saying, is that when you're there and you see it, and there were people who weren't related, who were in tears, and I think, when you stand there and it's there, and the circumstances and the conclusion of matching the faces and the names, I think it'll affect anybody who has a soul anyway. There are soulless people. But but then again, I'm sure there are people who just be like, it's another. I mean, we're so desensitized to everything.
How can you not be affected? It's interesting because in 1972 I went to Germany from Turkey. We lived in Turkey at the time. Caught a hop out of Incirlik, and the whole family went to Bavaria, and we actually toured the Olympic Village. Before the.
Did you live in Bavaria?
No, never lived there.
Beautiful.
I spent some time living in Frankfurt for a couple of years, but 20 years ago. But it was interesting because we toured the whole facility, and a month later, this was a month before the massacre that occurred there.
Oh,
and we'd gone back, and we were in Turkey when it happened, and we had gone to Birch's Garden, gone to Garmisch. We saw all the emplacements and the German history, World War II history, that sort of thing. You have to see something sometimes for it to come to life. You can read it in a book. You can read it in a book till the cows come home. But unless you're actually standing there, somebody can tell you there about your family's bones, but unless you're standing there holding them in your hand, it becomes real in a way that is totally unexpected. That it just becomes incredibly real and first person. It's not second, third, fourth, fifth person. It's first person. And when you can stand, back when we were in the Philippines, my parents made it a point to take us on the to visit the final place, the final prison that at the culmination of the Bataan Death March. And we actually drove along that road.
Interesting.
And ended up there, and I walked in the place. I walked around in it. You know, I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but back in the '60s, we walked into it. We walked into it, walked around, saw every cell, every hole, every cubby, everything, and you, I mean, it was you get a sense of how crazy it was to have been there and have been subject to that kind of action by another people. And, you know, there's this kind of thing all over the world. I love Germany, too. I've been there many times. Like I said, lived there for a little bit. And I've been to the German War Museum in Bonn. And it's not dissimilar to a war museum in the UK, where it was the kind of a historical thing where it talked about how people lived in Germany at the time. That's basically it. It wasn't necessarily of, you know, here were the guns we used and all that. No, it was really how the people lived and thrived. Just like in England, there's a war museum there, a war museum in France, and other places. Here's what the ration tickets look like, and you know, I mean, the way that people live throughout the world. You know, so you get a sense of that. But you know, history coming alive is always a I mean, it leaves you as a different individual, and I think it leaves you more compassionate, it leaves you more empathetic, it leaves you more loving of where you are right now, and even though in the shape that much of the world is in, that's nothing in comparison to the way it was between 39 and 45. I mean, really, it's just you had the whole world involved. And a lot of things were happening, and everybody literally was impacted and affected. And I think it's cool that that even though it took several years to put all this together, that the culmination of it was to me just very touching, very touching.
Yeah, it's like reading about Bergen-Belsen and being there. You know, it's like the whole. You see the ovens, and you're just like, good God, how did this happen?
Yeah, How do we get this far, right? How did anybody let it get that far, right? And then you go back and read about the history and how people were in the British government. We're like, we need to just give this guy what he wants, and you hear about that and you go, wait a minute, people that high up were going, let's just surrender our territory to him. It's not a big deal. And you're going, wait a minute, but it's true. I think that nowadays we have a tendency. We talk about this all the time on the show. People have a tendency to get wrapped up in their own life drama, and that's okay to a point, except for there's no happiness, there's no joy, because you're living your little drama, your little protagonist's drama, and everybody's being influenced from the outside by
distractions for profit.
That want you, that want something from you. And so the point that many people, and I think it's the reason why a lot of people are now tuning into this podcast and tuning into other resources that have a different message, is that you have the ability to now reclaim, your own sovereignty and understanding that what happened then and what's happening outside of you doesn't necessarily have to dictate how you feel today. You don't have to feel sad for the rest of your life because this happened to your family. You can feel grateful that they're for them taking the steps that they did. Crete is the better for it today, and they sacrificed. They made a sacrifice that was the ultimate sacrifice at the time, standing up for principles that they knew were right, and not falling for the tyranny, being fighting against it. On some level, many people around the world are doing that right now, not to the extent that there's a force that is looking to subjugate them, but basically, or take them over. But just because in their own lives there are things that they have, circumstances that they've created within their life, within their own little life drama, that are making them feel imprisoned by it. And our goal is to let them know that, hey, you can liberate yourself. It's in your, it's the 5 inches between your ears. You can perceive this any way you want. If you perceive it in a positive way, then you'll have a positive experience. Otherwise, if you perceive it in a negative way, that's the experience you're going to create for yourself. I think that you over there have created an awesome experience for yourselves now and going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it more as like, I mean, the thing that satisfies me about it is, of course, for my dad and my grandmother and my grandfather and family, but I feel a satisfaction that this is like a gift to Greece and to the world, you know, as an important lesson. Because, you know, before you would Google the executions and massacre, you know, over the years, and nothing would come up. Now you put it in, and lots of stuff comes up. So it's very satisfying that now there's a public record of that, and it's the first time DNA analysis has been done on World War II victims in Greece. So it's a first all around. So I just hope it sets a standard of sorts of awareness, and also for them to do it at other execution sites, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure it will, Eric. And what's so fascinating and so wonderful about this project and how it is so connected to love is because you are documenting this. You're not an outsider who's doing a documentary about people that you didn't know. This is a whole other level of heart connection. And I go back to your new single, Home. You know, your words, I call my bluff, pretending to be tough. I mean, this is, you had to find an inner strength that a lot of people would never even touch into because, you're as an artist, as a filmmaker, you're looking from the outside in, but you have this heart connection. This is your family. And I'm curious, when is the documentary going to be released after the next phase? I mean, I'm just like, can we see little snippets of, do tell, if you can.
Well, I don't even know if it's going to be me. I mean, there's all the information is there. Everything is pretty much in place to do it, aside from funding. So, these things could cost. I've actually spoken
There's always funding.
There's always funding. I've spoken to some interested parties, but it's difficult to focus. And since this kind of next phase of it is coming in, maybe I should wait for that to kind of materialize. But it would be a great thing. I mean, there's a soundtrack in the works for it that I'm creating, which is inspired by the whole thing, and it's going to be
beautiful,
a bit cinematic sounding, instrumental, mostly. So that's going to take a while. But yeah, I'd love to see that. I've spoken to a few high-profile people, which I'll tell you afterwards about maybe.
Okay. Yay.
And but it's all like timing and funding and things like that. And I'm it's probably easier to get funding for it, but it's just another thing that's kind of on the list with my 14 backlogged records. So.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, even just releasing Home, and the reviews have been spectacular for your new single, and
Thank you.
I just love it. And one of the reviews that you posted, and this is, I'm so glad that Iggy Mag from France put this into words, because they said an emotional dive into the heart of resilience and the quest for happiness. Captivating melodies and impeccable productions, Alexandrakis' voice full of charisma emerges with a powerful sensitivity. Each line of vocals executed with delicate mastery, a brilliant piece, which once again demonstrates his versatile talent while providing a deep reflection on the human condition. Wow, that was, it's
you gotta
so
love
true.
the French.
Oh my gosh. Totally love it. I mean, and truly the heart of resilience. I mean, that is your journey, not just through your challenges with your health conditions that you overcame, but now this and lots of other things. So would you speak a little bit to the inspiration for home and what you're finding and how people are, for me, like I told you before the show, when you had sent it to me and I was back home in Canada and I'm listening to it, I'm driving down these roads and it just, I listened to it over and over and over again because it was like, I'm
depth to it.
Yep, absolutely.
A lot of depth to it.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm always searching for something. I don't know what I'm searching for. I'm always very curious about everything. And, you know, in this line of work, there's a lot of negativity. And there's a lot of negativity in the world. And I've had some pretty questionable experiences in my life. And I think just that day, I was just like, God, I'm just so sick of all this stuff. So, and I was like, I just want to go home. Like, I was like, I just want to go home to Miami and for a little bit and just go home and hang out with my buddies and you know, so it was just kind of like one of those days, and the feeling had exhausted me. So it really came from that, but also, you know, those photos in the lyric video, I don't know if you've seen that, those were photos. I go to antique shops here sometimes. It's like walking through time. You know, I find it fascinating.
Always.
So, yeah. So I walk up to this one booth and it had a box of photos from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they were all original family photos, just somebody's family photos. And I'm looking at all of them and I'm thinking to myself, gosh, this is what we end up getting reduced to. You know, all of these cherished memories of these people. Here's a picture of a girl named Bernice who, it's, you know, to Donnie loved Bernice, and Donnie maybe cherished that photo and had it up on his desk for whoever knows how long. And so it just struck me how people's cherished memories and belongings just end up in a box for some stranger to buy for $1.49 or whatever. And it was kind of a sad thing, you know, and so I just kind of took them home, made a collage out of them, and rescued them, I guess, and it matched the mood. And, you know, there's also this thought of, yeah, go home, find happiness, be who you want to be, figure all that out, but never forget where you come from, because it's a big part of who you are and how you act and where you go. So it was all those elements put together, and then I've been studying a lot of the American songbook the last several years, especially from the 70s, which is the most creative time in music, I think, ever, and never will be again. So
I agree with you.
You know, I've mostly been into classical and soundtracks and British bands, but lately I've been kind of studying like Neil Young and Bob Dylan and early Heartbreakers and Melanie Safka, who's a close family friend, and that kind of stuff. And that influenced basically the track, all that stuff. And it has a very kind of American. Yeah, that's a very kind of American thing. And somebody told me the other day, it's like, oh, I grew up in England and I was listening to it, and there's a lot of kind of British there. And I was like, well, I've spent a lot of time in the UK, and I lived in London for a little bit, and so that's always in there. But yeah,
home is where the heart is, right?
I'm sorry?
Always.
I said home is where the heart is, right? Wherever that is.
Yeah, I mean, I call Miami home sweet hellhole. It's just a disaster down there. After a week, you just want to kick someone in the shin. You know, it's just so crazy. But you know, home is home, and I do love it. I still love it, and it's nice to go home, and you know, but home doesn't necessarily have to be a location. It has to, you know, home for me is a metaphor for happiness. So wherever you find happiness, you find home. So that's really all the elements.
Be joyful anywhere.
Yeah.
If you set your mind to it, you can be joyful anywhere. You just
exactly.
Set things up.
Yeah. Depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, and everybody's got a different definition of home, and the interesting thing is I find some people just can't be comfortable somewhere else other than their personal enclave or wherever they're living on purpose, because that's their intention, is not to be comfortable, not to be joyful in that place, not to find the love or the joy in that temporary environment. And it's a shame, but that does happen. I've run into people that are like that. Oh, I just can't be comfortable. I'm just not happy. I wish I was back with my stuff, my place, my friends and all that. Make new friends. You can be incredibly happy absolutely anywhere, and because it's all in your head. And I know for me that's exactly the way it is. I love being wherever I am. It comes also from living in different places all around the world all my life. Some people who have only lived in one place on one street or in one town and have the same friends they've had for decades may feel differently when they leave to go to some other place because it is foreign, because the contrast is so different, so diverse, so different, because it's just so dramatically different from what it was, insanely different. To me, it's not. It's just another place, and there are people. I still have to get to Crete, though. That's.
You let me know. I mean, it's interesting because I'll go home to Miami and it feels like home. I go to Crete and it feels just as much as home.
Oh yeah.
I go to London, the UK, and I feel so at home. And I think that probably because of just spending a lot of time there since I was a little kid. But I've lived in Colorado a long time, and it's never felt like home. It's very strange.
Where'd you live in Colorado?
I get that totally.
I'm about an hour north of Denver.
Oh wow! Now that's up there.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay.
It's great. I feel like it's the best state, but maybe because it was never intended to be permanent. I was always it's kind of in transit to California. But
I agree. Yeah, it's been 2 years in Colorado Springs.
Oh right, that's right. I remember you telling me that. Yeah. Right. How did you like it?
Well, it was in the 60s, so it wasn't really as built up as it is today. And my parents had actually built a house there that they were going to retire in when my father got out of the Air Force in 1974. The house is still there, but we sold it in 1973 or 4 because there was no work there. My father retired from the Air Force and upstate New York, and we moved to California because California was hiring. The state.
And Tim wasn't in Starfleet yet, so that was.
Where Tim graduated. Tim graduated from school up in upstate New York with us there in high school, and then he jetted off. He never went to California with. He jetted off with spent 4 years in Austin at St. Ed's University, and that's and that kind of transformed his life in a very, very, very big way. Obviously, led to the career where he is, being an actor these many years. That's where he discovered his love for. He didn't discover his love for acting there because he did it in other plays in high school. But he discovered that that being in front of an audience and bringing a character to life was something that enthralled him. So that's what he decided to do, and he's never had any idea to do anything else other than music. Still plays music, still got a band, still plays around L.A. Twice.
And I've heard Austin has a lot of opportunities for Vulcans, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Lots of opportunities. It had a couple while he was there actually. So because Nimoy came there, he did a play with Nimoy back in college.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you told me that too. That's awesome.
Very interesting story. Just strange that things.
Yeah, that is strange.
Come full circle. It's really
glitch in the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's like a parallel universe. It's really rather cool. But hey, definitely love your song, love your music, love your creativity, and
thanks, man.
It takes. I don't think people really understand. The average person doesn't really understand what it takes to actually get to the point where the song is done and you're listening to it. I've been involved in the creative process myself from a drummer's perspective, having to create something out of thin air, hearing a melody and coming up with it. And to me, it's one of the most dynamic and more unique creative processes, birthing, so to speak, a birthing process. It's really, really the coolest thing for me. I really, really enjoyed it. So I can imagine how much fun you're having when it comes to putting the individual pieces together, having an idea, and then moving forward and birthing it into a full finished piece.
It's a lot of fun. Sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No, speak to that.
No, I was going to say this one was pretty different because I usually play everything and mix everything and all that, and I almost never collaborate on solo stuff with anybody because I don't know, it's a control thing, I guess, or I don't like waiting on people. I don't know what it is, but this time I got kind of lazy, so I got Ryan Hoyle, who was in Collective Soul, to do the drums, and one of my old friends of 30 years is like my favorite kind of rootsy guitar player to play some leads, and another old friend to play electric bass, who plays with one of Greece's biggest bands, and then a friend who plays accordion. He's like a virtuoso on the accordion. And then I had an old friend, Paul Hager, who's like the top pop mixer. He does all the Katy Perry and Miley Cyrus and Jonas Brothers, and all. He mixed the tracks. So it was a cool process to have all these different people do their thing, and because it elevates you and it does different things. It elevates the song, elevates me as an artist, and so it was very different this time, and came out good. Yeah.
The blend.
Yeah. Well, you're creating a place of home for everybody, and I just want to mention for our audience members who may not have access to your Instagram or to the other things. If you go to It's a Beautiful Day Today, again, it's abeautifulDayToday.com. You'll have Eric's music, the Instagram, Facebook, your threads, and your website. And for you, and I say this all the time, that you are so amazing and uniquely creative, because that's exactly what you do. The photography, the colors. I mean, you speak to my soul all the time. And you love orange, and that's Michael's favorite color. And orange is a color for energy and positivity and joy. And I think everything you create is filled with so much joy. So when you bring and collaborate with some other people, it's like, okay, well, I don't usually do this, but let's see what happens. And something beautiful happened.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's the only way.
Yeah,
the only way. You got to experiment.
I think one of the things we'll also let our audience know is we could put that. We'll put a link to his website in the description.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a direct link to the song too, so that they can hear Home, because we've talked about it and spent so much time kind of having you explain it, which is really kind of cool, so they can get that right off the bat. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to kick it with you a little bit here on our show, and I still love to have the opportunity to get together with you in person. That will happen.
Yeah, man.
Of course, I'd like to get together with Lisa in person too, but that hasn't happened in 3 years.
One of these days. Well, I said to Eric, he has both of you have an open invitation to come stay at my Airbnb. Come in. You can come to the Warhol Museum and do all kinds of fun Pittsburgh things.
Oh, I'd love to go there. I bought a T-shirt from there.
A
month ago.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so much creativity and so much culture. I think Pittsburgh, sometimes people are really surprised.
Funny. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was going to say is I bought this turquoise Marilyn Monroe print T-shirt from the Warhol Museum, and then a month after I bought it, Simon LeBlanc was wearing the same one at a Pittsburgh show.
Yes, he was
on stage. I'm like,
who was this now?
Simon Le Bon, and I was at that show, and it was fantastic.
That's right, you were at that show. Oh, maybe it was you who sent me the photo. Maybe it was you who sent me the photo. And I'm like, I just bought that shirt like a month ago, but like he's cool. Like,
great minds think alike. Yeah,
we have very similar tastes. Yeah.
But, well, you've had it's amazing because like even with Silver Moon, which was the Grammy-nominated album, it just the tribute to Michael Nesmith. And when I was from Canada, so we didn't have the Monkees. So when I came to the States and I saw the Monkees, I was like, "What's this? What's this?" They're cute. Not really, but it's still, even today when I watch them, it's so timeless.
Well, the catalog, the music catalog is incredible. There's so many great. I mean, it's like pop songwriting 101, and Mike, the songs that Mike wrote are really great, and there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff that they actually did that they played and wrote. The first few albums they were basically appeared on them, but then there's an album called Headquarters, which is just them. And they're very underappreciated, underrated. It wasn't as fake as everybody says. I mean, they were put together through an ad, but they played concerts, they wrote songs, they played on songs, they produced. There's a lot of depth to that catalog. It's probably my favorite catalog. There's just so many gems in that catalog.
I agree.
Another adage. Another validation of the fact that nothing is an accident and nothing is a coincidence. Things come together the way they're supposed to, and sometimes we just think of their accidents or luck, but really that's not it.
They should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Really, they should. I mean, it was a TV band that made it, but I mean, the amount of music and the stuff that they did, it's incredible. They deserve.
Surprised they're not there already. Yeah.
Well, they're not there already. I mean, Nesmith should be in there. I mean, he had the idea for MTV, originally, and sold the idea, and then, MTV was born, and he wrote different drum, from Linda Ronstadt. Was it Linda Ronstadt? I think it was Linda Ronstadt. The Stone Ponies. He wrote that song. I mean, they contributed a lot. And the Monkees catalog itself is pretty amazing. I mean, there are people who get Grammys and things like that for doing much less than what they did,
Yeah, right.
So it makes sense. But like the whole TV show thing, apparently, it was a TV show. Yeah, but I mean, look, Celine Dion doesn't write. She sings. She's a great vocalist, and she's gotten accolades. They sang. They didn't write on some of the songs, although they did play and they did produce, and they wrote a lot of the tunes. So I don't understand what the difference is, but
right.
Yeah. It's a perception.
Right.
It's a perception generally about
it's a perception.
That, It's always a perception about it. About the fact that they were as worthy as somebody else who had greater acclaim or greater something.
But maybe that's part of the mission of. Yeah, I was going to say maybe that's part of the mission of Minoan music. What's ahead?
Yeah,
what's ahead for Minoan music?
I would love to make that happen. In fact, I've actually spoken to some of their people in their organization about it, but and Mickey's the only one left. It'd be nice if Mickey was able to kind of see that happen. I without a doubt, I think they deserve to be in.
Well, look what you made happen in Crete. I think that Eric Alexandrakis can make anything happen. Really, it's your vision, and that's what's so beautiful about it. You have a passion for something, and you have a love for it, and then you bring it to life, and then you share it with other people, and everybody's like, "Wow, never knew."
Yeah, the problem is when big corporations are kind of in the way, then it's it gets to be a bit of a conundrum.
Well, let's just say that you've put the idea out there, you've created the desire, and threw it out into the universe, so it'll start manifesting as something. It'll get out there. You planted the seed, and you're the fact that you had this running through your mind is that seed's been watered. It's just a function of it coming into the right ear and getting a coalescing of that idea. But it'll happen. It'll happen.
Planting the seeds. We'll have to put it on all of our Instagrams. And Michael, with his high frequency golf, you're going to have to figure out a way you can, get it into one of your videos. And
Something about it. If there's a quote or something that I can use You know, it's the most challenging thing to make a 1-minute video from beginning to end. I mean, unedited. I don't edit anything. Just basically from beginning to end, 1 minute, 60 seconds. That's not a lot of time to really. You know, I see people doing edits and cuts and all kinds of things to make things happen, and I'm astounded by their talent. Number one. But it's true. It's. I would love if there's some sort of quote. I'm not opposed to using non-golfer quotes to begin. I've already done, I did an Alice Cooper quote. Alice Cooper's a 2-handicap golfer. He's a really good golfer, and I used him as one of his quotes about golf already. And I'm looking for some others. There's lots of other people who, in the music business that play golf, and the acting business who play golf that I know I've played in the same tournaments with. So it's stuff happening, you know.
Yeah.
I got to check that out. I saw the one you sent, but I'd seen that one before. But yeah, I'm gonna have a look at the other ones because you have.
Yeah, so we have about 4 minutes. So I'd love, Eric, for you to leave our audience with. I know time flies. It's just like we've got to have you back sooner. Not as long of a gap as what we had before because it's so delightful. And believe me, I'm smiling from ear to ear. If you could see my cheeks hurt because I have been smiling this whole time. So please, anything you would love to leave our audience with and share in the next 4 minutes would be amazing.
Peace on earth. That's pretty much it.
We need it. We need peace through love, as I like to say. We need to. There needs to be a greater focus on that. I'll take that and run with it just a second because I know there is the Love Project we talked about in the past. It's what's unique is the fact that people, that love needs to be a greater part of our everyday thinking. We, as Carol Collins, and the teachers who channels the teachers say, love on something. Love on something. Don't just see challenge or tragedy or difficulty. You see life through the lens of love and the creativity that can spring from that, the intuition that can spring from loving yourself and loving life. Nothing in the world is going to change unless people themselves begin to change first.
Right.
That's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
That is the way it happens. We solving the problems that we have. Let's look at it this way. If you look back to even World War II, which we started this entire conversation off with, what would have happened if the people hadn't succumbed to the ideology? If they'd rejected it and said, no, we just believe in love. None of that stuff would have happened because you needed the people to collectively go along with it. Because they're the ones who had to go fight for it. And so in any of these situations, when someone at the top is not thinking and acting from love, they need to be reminded that, love is the way, baby. That's what gets things done. That's where the real power and energy is. And when they believe and start to think and act, when people at the top start believing and thinking and acting from that premise instead of the complete opposite, or greed and fear and, getting into that groove, then people will be respected and outcomes will change in a dramatic way, and the people will be at the head of that change, the leading the change.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I believe
seconds.
Music changes everything. So yeah.
Well, that's
it
true.
does.
Music and love are intimately entwined.
Absolutely. It's a
because
frequency.
of the passion that goes into it, the love and passion that goes into it. There's no way you can separate the two.
It's the only thing that can create love on a mass scale.
Absolutely.
Really, when you think about it, because even if you go to a sporting event, there's somebody who's going to be against you. But if you're at a U2 concert and everybody's singing in the name of love, everybody's united. It's like the most powerful force on the earth.
And they're feeling it too. They're feeling it.
Right.
They're feeling what love. They're experiencing what love feels like. And
exactly.
Music can help you take that to anywhere in the world, any place, under any circumstance.
That's right.
Yeah.
And,
well, this has been fun, Eric.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Nice chatting with you.
Yeah, and it truly is. It's a beautiful day today. Thank you, Eric, so much for the reminder. And please, everybody visit. It's a beautiful day today because it truly is. And so blessed. And peace out. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Enjoy, Eric.
Big hug.